Hey everyone, and welcome to Crunching Your Growth. I'm Phil Masiello, entrepreneur, brand builder, and founder of Crunch Growth, a revenue acceleration agency that's been helping brands scale for over 12 years. Before we jump in tonight, I want to give you a little background because we've seen a lot of comments about different things, and there's a lot of so-called coaches and marketing experts out there who've never actually built anything themselves. They're reading from someone else's playbook, not their own. But that's not me, and that's not this show. I've built and scaled 3 successful companies. I've exited companies. I've lived and grind of launching, scaling, pivoting, winning. And today, my team and I help brands grow every single day across e-commerce, retail, emerging digital platforms. So we don't just teach theory, we write books on it. So when you listen to this show, you're not just getting advice from me and other entrepreneurs, you're getting real world experience, lessons learned in the trenches, wins and losses that shape the playbook we use to help brands thrive. So if you're serious about scaling, about doing the work it takes to build something that lasts, you're in the right place. So let's dive in, because tonight our guest is Dan Pfister. He's a marketer, he's a podcast host, he's the founder of WinBack Labs. So anybody who's been in e-commerce for any length of time, who's running automation and emails or anything, understands what WinBack is, but how many actually do it. So Dan's developed a WinBack process that's helped his previous company generate over 50,000 customers and millions in revenue. So today he's going to show us how startups can scale using what they already have, their list. So this episode's about smart growth, about how to increase your revenue fast without chasing cold leads or blowing your ad budget. So let's get Dan in and let's start talking to him. Dan, thanks for joining us.
Great to be here, Phil. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, sure. Why don't you give us a bit of a background into who you are, what you've done, and how you got to this point, and what was the big revelation to WinBack?
Sure. So back in 1998, I co-founded a company called the Business Source. And, over the years, we generated tens of thousands of customers, but, we ran into trouble a number of times. We had to pivot 3 times. First of
We all
all,
do.
I'm sorry?
I said, like we all do.
Yeah, like we all do. Nothing like being an entrepreneur. They get the market gets its licks in, doesn't it?
The pivot's the pivot.
Yeah. So, we started off really strong, right? It was right at the beginning of the internet really taking off. It's kind of like where we are with AI right now.
Sure.
Things were just starting to ramp up. It was really exciting, tons of opportunity, and so we did really, really well. We got some, massive clients, very, very fast, and we were just cruising. And then in 2001, the dot-com bubble burst, and
Uh,
we just got killed. Like all these huge clients, we had all this great future just basically evaporated. So we had to pivot. And what we did is we started becoming content providers for big brands, mutual fund companies, and Fidelity was one of them. So we did that. We worked with big brands, and then in 2008 we got hit again. The financial crisis
oh
hit, so
yeah.
we had to pivot again. So instead of focusing on bigger brands, what we did is we decided to get a lot of smaller accounts,
Sure.
large numbers of smaller accounts. So what we did is we partnered with a bunch of groups who had these kind of accounts, like business associations, and we grew back again like we were back in 1998 to 2001, and then in 2016 we got hit again, and we lost a ton of customers.
Yeah.
Sales started to tank, and this time there wasn't like any external reason why it happened, right? It was just like,
Yeah.
so we had to look inwards. This wasn't just a pivot. This was like, we're messing up somehow.
Yeah.
And yeah, so anyway, I had a couple of partners, and
That's
this
not
was
called the pivot. That's called the revelation.
so so uh, we had done like basic ad hoc, outreach to lost customers to win them back, like
Yeah.
nothing really serious. We were just all about get a client in the door and
Yeah.
expand, land and expand, land and expand. That was our mantra.
Sure.
So anyway, but our back was up against the wall. We had to do something about all this churn, and so there really wasn't much out there. like on WinBack, right? Very little
Right.
at the time. So what I did is I just took everything I knew from marketing for the last 20 years, I threw it all in the hopper, and I came up with a program.
Uh-huh.
So I created this pilot program for WinBack, and I remember the morning we launched. It was like I was not optimistic at all, because the other outreach didn't really do much, right?
Right.
I kind of figured that like when a customer's gone, they're pretty well gone for good. They found another supplier, another vendor, and or they were upset with us.
Sure.
I had all these things in my head about what a lost customer was and why they
Sure.
left. And so anyway, I launched, and it was nuts. It was shocking. We had like a 57x ROI right out of the gate. These sales cycles were so short. And it cost next to nothing to get these sales, right? I mean, this was literally the fastest, easiest money I'd made in 20 years of marketing.
Yeah.
And yeah, I just instantly became this massive fan of WinBack. I couldn't believe that I had this much revenue sitting under my nose and I never saw it. You know,
Yeah. I'll tell you that it's one of the first things we look at when we get a new client, whether we have that part of the business or not. We always take a look at the list and see how they're harvesting that list. Because I learned when I did a shaving brand, and we this was back in 2015, 2012, 2013, around that time frame. And I remember we were like everybody else, we were using MailChimp and some other mail platforms, but we wound up getting this beefier platform, a better one that was fairly new to the market. And it was all about automations and win back and segmentation and everything. And it was unbelievable how quickly we were able to, like you, we thought some of these customers just mad at us, or some of these customers, we're never going to buy again. But when you really get down into it, what you find is that they just forgot about you, or something happened, or that's why we tell people all the time, you want to make sure that this has to do with e-commerce primarily. You want to make sure that the packaging you're sending out is something that they want to keep, not just a box that they're going to throw away, but you want something in it they're going to keep so that they remember your brand. Which is why packaging is so important. But I digressed and got you off track, but sorry about that.
yeah. So I wanted to learn more about marketing. So I optimized. I only had so much in my head. So I wanted to learn more. So I thought an easy way to get to talk to smart people who've done WinBack is to do a benchmark study, right?
Yeah.
And there wasn't any real data out there
Yeah.
that was publicly available that was of any real use to me. So what I did is I did this study, and I can share some of the results of that study later on. But basically, I did the study, learned a bunch, and I was kind of bummed out after the study was done because I wanted to talk to more people about this stuff, right? I mean,
Yeah. Yeah.
I got it's just amazing, like I love marketing to begin with, but when you find something new and exciting after 20 years, it's like you
Sure.
really want to dive in. So then I started the podcast, and I got to talk to some really interesting people about WinBack, and learn more and more. And then last year, what I did is I just put everything I learned into a book, and so I wrote a book called Million Dollar Win. You got a lot more books. You got what, 3 books?
Yeah. I actually just finished my fourth one. It's called The Why Behind the Buy. It's going to launch June 3rd. It hasn't launched yet. I wasn't happy with the cover. I redid the cover a couple of times, but yeah, I've written 4. Two of them on marketing, and one of them on entrepreneurship. One of them was out of date pretty quickly. It was about Amazon, and I
Right.
wrote it in 2016. But Amazon changes so rapidly that I'd have to redo that book every year, pretty much, and which is not something that I really care to do. So, but yeah, I love marketing. That's all I've ever done in my life. Consumer product marketing. We focus on consumers. Um, and obviously we do a lot with e-commerce. We do a lot with we work primarily with brands, and we've it doesn't matter to us what channel. It could be retail, could be e-commerce, could be anywhere, and we do some business on Amazon still. That's sort of how we started way back when, was doing Amazon business, but um, we still run a lot of ads on Amazon. But the management of accounts is something that we're trying to move away from. It's just gotten so tedious.
Right. Does AI help with that? Like, can that kind of like take the load off?
You know, um, it's not so much where AI helps, which we use a lot of. Building product pages, we don't mind doing that. We love that. Building A+ pages, we love that. Building the copy and the content, we love that. When I talk about managing, we used to do full service management, and there's so many problems that come up. I'll give you a perfect example, one that we're going through now, which is we have a client who ships, they do the shipping themselves. And there's a spot where you can put in by each SKU the handling time. And about 5 weeks ago, the whole system fell apart. Everything got sent back to zero, which meant that if you got an order at 12 o'clock, you were expected to ship it that day, and which is impossible. And so, well, for them, it is impossible. And so they were getting, late shipment notices and things. And we kept changing it. We kept fixing it. And it kept every day it goes back to zero. And Amazon can't tell us why. The case has been open for a month and a half. And it's just the most, and it's not just us. If you go out and Google it, you'll find that there's a ton of sellers that have the same problem. And so it's those kinds of things where you're constantly chasing something. And you almost become an accountant, because even if you use AI to pull the numbers in and analyze the numbers, and you find a problem, like they overbilled you or overcharged you, or there was a charge there that shouldn't have been, you're spending days and hours. And so it's just it's not something that we want to do. We'll get the account set up, we'll build the product pages, we'll do all that, but we don't want to really get involved with the management anymore, unless it's our own brand.
Mm-hmm.
So,
I hear you.
yeah. So, so that's sort of your story about how you got involved with WinBack, and now you did a study,
Yep.
which how did you? I guess we could talk about that a little bit. Like, how did you do
Sure.
it? Because we've done studies in the past, and they're tedious. Yeah, the information is great, but they could be tedious.
Yeah. Well, we reached out to, 5,000 people. Like, I had a lot of founders and CROs, CMOs.
Sure,
Um, there were first level contacts with me, and I basically had my team and other people reach out to them and just ask, have you done a win back program? Would you mind sharing any of your, any of your findings?
sure.
And oh my God, like I think we went out to 1,000 people the first hit, and like I got like three agreed to talk, and only one showed up for the talk. You know what I mean? It was pretty brutal. But anyway, we got much better at that, much better at doing the ask, and yeah, so we ended up getting about, after we did this, like three tiers of this, maybe it was maybe four actually if you count. Anyway, so the bottom line is we ended up getting 170 people over
Wow.
time for it. And uh, I think the original batch was only like 85, 90, something like that. Anyway, it
Yeah.
took a while. Okay.
Yeah.
So basically, I think we basically put 9 months into it, because you've got to have a decent sample size, or else
Oh,
the
yeah.
numbers are pretty meaningless, right?
Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely.
Yeah. So at the beginning, we were getting rid of all the outliers, and then it's just, anyway. Long story short, we got some numbers. As soon as we started feeling comfortable with our numbers, it's like, uh, then we knew that we'd probably hit enough people up. So, like for example, we found that on average, this is for SMBs, because most of the people had businesses 200 people or less
Yeah.
in the business. For SMBs, we found that the average win-back campaign did 485 grand.
Wow.
Okay, and we found that uh, the average conversion rate was 26%.
Yeah.
So
I can believe it.
yeah, so that's what we found. And then there was a study that was featured in the Harvard Business Review, and they found that 31% came back. Okay, so we're in the ballpark there, right?
Sure.
We found that a lifetime value more than doubles,
Yeah. I
like
can
about
imagine.
110%.
Yeah.
So the second time around are actually more valuable than the first time around. And then the same study in the Harvard Business Review found 100, like 110, 111%. It was almost identical, right? So that was fantastic. So we had all this. So I felt like uh, we had good, solid numbers now. So other things we found were that sales cycles were 3 times faster, right? Because you've already done the whole sale once, right?
Sure.
So you've engagement is fast because you're familiar to them. They'll pick up the phone or they'll answer their email. And Jeb Blunt, the author of Fanatical Prospecting, he says that it only takes 1 to 3 touches to re-engage a past customer
Yeah.
versus like dozens and dozens for a cold prospect. So the sales cycles are really fast. There's a lot of other reasons we can go into those if you want, but anyway, so the sales cycles are fast, and the selling is so much easier. It's like, man, it's almost like you're starting with a warm lead, right?
Oh, absolutely. There's um, a friend of mine who analyzes. They have a business where they analyze advertising, whether it's B2B advertising or B2C advertising. And they've been doing it, and they have quantifiable data, and they have a whole system to do it. And they work with like the Coca-Colas of the world and, big companies. And they just came out with a study, and it said that your prospect, whether it's B2C or B2B, doesn't matter. Your prospect has to consume 7 hours of your
Mm.
content in order for them to make a decision about doing business with you, right? And that's why long form video, short form video, uh, written content that you put out on your website, all those things matter. And people are reading it and people are engaging with you about it. And then what you send in emails and all those things. So yeah, that's for a cold prospect. So, warm prospects, like you said, they already know you. They already have bought from you. So it's much, much easier and much more efficient. So
Yeah, these are such efficient programs.
yeah,
You've got all this customer knowledge, right? You've already seen inside their company, or at minimum they've bought from you, so you know about how they buy. Maybe when the buying window opens. So all these things about them, like maybe who the decision makers are. Depends on the level of sale. So all this stuff. You don't know any of that stuff with a cold prospect.
no,
And what else do you know? Oh, hey, listen, there's a really interesting thing. There's Jill Griffin did some research, and she found that about 1/3 of your past customers will literally tell you exactly what it takes to win back their business. And she had a great story about losing their biggest account was the Honda account, and she was telling me that she just got her ace sales rep to go out there and find out why they left, what it'll take to win them back. And they had this huge laundry list, and they got them back.
yeah,
You know, and it's better. A lot of people would rather come back to you because they know you, right?
sure.
You're a known quantity. So if you go fix whatever wasn't great, I mean that's just one example, but
Well, it's not just that. I mean, it works, and it doesn't matter. Again, B2B, B2C, it doesn't make a difference. When again, we deal with consumer products and we deal with consumers, and it's amazing to me when I had the beauty company or the shaving company, if a customer had a bad experience with us, every Friday I would take the 5 worst customers, biggest customer complaints, didn't get my package, whatever it is, never buying from you again, blah, blah, blah. And I would call them on the phone and I would say, I just want to know what your experience was. And, I know that you're not going to come back. I got it. I just want to hear from you what happened. And after they got through yelling at you, and again, a lot of people don't want to do this because they feel like, somebody's going to yell at me. But so what? They're going to get yelled at, and customers irate, customers not happy. But then after they do that and they get it out of their system, they're going to tell you exactly what you did wrong. And then they're going to tell you 90% of the time they come back. 90% of the time, because you just called them, you're interested, you're trying to figure out what the problem is, and then you're gonna fix the problem for them, and then they're gonna come back. So it's the same on the B2B side. So Honda probably said, these are the 10 things you need to do, and you fix them, they'll come back.
Yeah, it's amazing. It's almost like you've been through a journey together, and they're actually
Exactly.
become more loyal. You know,
Exactly.
and there's uh, this is actually something that was really really interesting to me because most people they're too afraid to go out back to their angry customers
Oh
because
yeah.
they don't want an earful, right? and all the secrets of winning back customers, they're
Yeah.
locked in those customers that churned, right? They know why, they know what the first point of friction was, they know what put them over the top, they know how they felt after they left,
Exactly.
they know all of these things, and you've got access to that if you've got the guts to go out and talk to them.
Yeah.
And yeah, and there's two pieces of human psychology that kind of like explain why what you do or what you did, is so powerful. Like the first one is the peak end rule, right? So what that basically says, I know you know it, but just to recap, um, people the way they think of you is from the peak of the experience and the end of the experience. These have a disproportionately large impact on how they feel about you. So when you reach out, so right now, these lost customers that are mad, and a lot of them aren't mad, okay? You
Yeah.
got to make sure that's true. But the people that are mad, when you reach out, you're creating a new lost touch because you're showing empathy. You said, where did we go wrong? How did we screw up? How could we fix it? So now all of a sudden, the last touch isn't this mess. It's
Yeah.
now something positive and it has a disproportionately large impact on how they feel about you.
Yeah.
And then when you go and try to fix it, something called pratfall effect kicks in. And the pratfall effect says when you fix a problem, you're seen as more competent and more likable because you've helped them out in some way.
Yeah.
And so you got these two big psychological impacts on a customer. And so when they come back, some of them even become advocates. I'm sure you've got stories about that, right?
Oh, absolutely. And like I said, you said it yourself. People are afraid to go and face what the obstacle is, what the if it's an angry customer or a customer that you lost, people don't want to hear about it, and so you have to sort of develop thick skin. But when you take a step back and you say, "What's the worst thing that's going to happen to me? I'm not going to die. They're not going to hit me. I'm not going to. We're not going to wind up in a fisticuffs brawl. They're going to yell at me. Okay, I've been yelled at enough times in my life. I can sit there and take it, but you have to hear what they're saying, what's behind all the yelling or what's behind the anger, and then you can calm down the situation and do it. But I've got a million stories about customers that we've turned around, or it's a great thing, but. This is where the gold is, in my opinion. This is where the money is. Because there's so many companies out there, whether it's again B2C or B2B, that don't want to face that reality. And if you can kick them in the butt to get them to do it, that's where the gold is. That's where the money is. You know?
100%. You're going to learn these angry customers. They might tell you things that your happy current customers won't tell your customers.
Exactly.
And you can't fix a problem that you don't know, right?
Exactly.
You're going to unearth all these problems, and then you can say this is fixable, this is mitigatable. So now, say you've just fixed three problems, you've mitigated three others. Now your current customers, they don't have those problems that you fixed, so less of them are going to churn, and you just
Yeah.
mitigated a bunch more.
Yeah.
It's crazy how like we think that you should be able to reduce your churn by about 20%. After you go through
Sure.
really really learning why customers left and how to get them back. And I mean, some people have just done nutty things. They found holes in their sales process that just make all the difference in the business. There's a friend of mine, Tom Williams. He he got his churn from something like 83 retention from 83% all the way up to 97,
Wow.
simply because he discovered through doing his churn analysis that they were losing all these customers because they were selling into middle management, and they weren't. And when the C-suite was questioning whether or not to keep that line item, nobody would speak up for it. They didn't want to defend it. So
Yeah.
they went to the C-suite. They
Yeah.
won back over 90% of their lost customers, and then churn was stayed up that high. So I mean, I'm just trying to underscore the fact that what you're saying is so important for everybody who's listening. This is a big deal.
Yeah. And again, it's not just B2B, it's B2C as well. There's
Yeah.
money out there. I can't tell you how many times we've taken on a new client and looked at their list and looked at I I actually had somebody yesterday, a prospective client. I asked how big the list was, and they told me they had a list of say 20,000, but it's been constant because they've been deleting the people who haven't purchased in 6 months or more. And I went, why would you delete those? That's why we have automation tools. I hope you can. I hope you can find that list somewhere. I hope you have that list of people, because I'll guarantee you, I'll pay for our services in a year just off that list.
Mhm.
And they couldn't. It's amazing how little people understand about their customers or the journey or what people are doing or it's just and the assets, and again, these are smart people. These are people that have built businesses. These are people that have built startups. uh, on the business side, we do have a couple of, even though our specialty is consumer products and we focus on consumers and all, we do have a couple of industrial clients where we do B2B for them. And we have one that never even thought about pulling their client list. And we said, give us your client list, let us construct some outreach to them, and let's see where it goes. And what was amazing was, I don't actually have the numbers off the top of my head, but because when they get a client, they're a huge construction company, big buildings, big, and and so I don't really know exactly how many, but I know that we got a tremendous amount back, and they were jumping for joy. And it was really done. It was really done with a series of 3 or 4 emails, and to get the phone to ring on the salesman side or on the operations side. And it was the same type of thing that you're talking about. Some of the people left because, or stopped buying from them, or stopped working with them because they were angry about something,
Mhm.
on time deliveries of whatever. Um, so it's interesting to me. It's interesting that there's money just sitting there. The cost of acquisition, when you look at the cost of acquisition in different channels, the cost of a new customer acquisition in different channels, on the B2C side, I can tell you it's anywhere from $50 to $110, and on the B2B side, it's even bigger. Right, attorneys and all, these guys are
Mhm.
spending three, four, $500, and it goes on up. But when you think about that, and when you think about the ability to go out and rejuvenate a list with just nothing but work, phone calls, emails, meetings, that's so much cheaper than trying to run advertising to get new customers, or do B2B direct outreach.
Oh yeah. The time and effort it takes just to get the attention of a law firm, you just mentioned legal, it's crazy. But after you get them, and if you lose them, they'll probably take your call, you
Yeah,
know? And so here you go, you might have spent like $8,000 getting their attention, and maybe total CAC is like maybe 10,000. That's like 8 of the 10. And then you can reacquire them for like 5 phone calls. You got to bring something to the table,
sure.
to entice them back. It's not just about why they churned, but margins are nuts especially I would imagine in consumer brands.
Oh,
When
it's huge. I'll give you a real funny, quick story. Um, we had a client early on, when we first started this particular business, and they were a great client. We did great work for them, and one day we got a call, and we had it was the CEO of the company, the founder of the company, who brought us on, and then over time, we got pushed to like the marketing group, and which was fine. And then there was some turnover of people, and we wound up losing the business after about 4 years, and we couldn't figure out why, because we we thought we did great. The numbers were always positive, and uh, so I gave it about 2 months to calm things down, and then I called the CEO and I said, what do I have to do to get this back? Because I thought we were doing some great business. And he said, "What do you mean get it back?" I said, "Well, we don't have your business anymore." He said, "What do you mean you don't have it anymore?" I said, we're not your marketing firm anymore. We're not your advertiser. We're not placing your ads. We're not doing any of that anymore." And he said, "Well, hang on, I'll call you back." And it turns out that the person who was in charge of marketing made the decision without even talking to him. And the group that she went with was a group that they used years before, which he hated. And so it turned into this whole big thing. But we wound up getting the business back. We lost it for no apparent reason. But again, just by making a phone call, he would have never known. It probably would have been a year from now before he even knew. So,
Oh yeah. And there's so many other, like similar, like adjacent things where somebody thought the grass was greener on the other side of the
oh,
fence.
yeah, yeah.
And then they find it isn't, but they're embarrassed to come back to you, right? So you've got to reach out to them and make them feel welcome again.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, it's true. Um, it's true. There's so many new, bright, shiny things out there that people talk about. And all these people, I have an AI product that's going to 10x your business overnight. I mean, I get bombarded with things like that. And I think, really? So I always respond the same way. Okay, so I'm doing 150 million. That means you're going to get me to 1.5 billion. You're going to 10x my business. You're going to get me to 1.5 billion. So, and that kind of, you never hear from them again when you do that. But so, in your experience, what do you think are is there like a pattern or that on the type of businesses that most often gain from a win back strategy?
Yeah, I think that subscription businesses tend to be the easiest.
Oh
Okay.
yeah,
Now, before I want to preface that by saying any business with like high acquisition costs or a saturated market where selling is tough, they're all it's all really important. Okay.
yeah,
So, but the easiest one, the one that's like you've got to do it no matter what, is if you're a subscription business, because that is you don't need to create something new to get them back, right? Because you're always doing the same thing. Like a consultant might have to say, okay, I got these 10 clients, they're gone. It's really not lost, but like, what can I offer those 10 next, right? So you leverage the relationship and the trust and everything else. But for all other types of companies where you actually lost their business for a reason, or subscriptions are the biggest. Any company, like if you've got high margins, like if you're B2B and you've got high margins, or high cost of acquisition, one or the other,
sure,
you've got to do win back. And you're just gonna and even if even if you're just starting out, right? You've only been out there a year, and you're just acquiring, and you're going to lose a lot. Lots going out the
oh
back door.
yeah,
Just just reaching out to your lost customers, and just doing a simple win back where you find out why did you go, what it'll take to win you back, and you go and you test that, right? So you see, are they full of crap, or are they telling you something real,
yeah, yeah,
right? And then you do your win loss analysis after a bunch of these, and you find, oh, this is the real reason people will come back. And and now, bringing those, you might cut your churn in half just from something simple like that, because there's so much you don't know, but we're so focused, especially in the early stages of we gotta just blast out as much and get as many new customers as possible.
yeah, 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 yeah. Run, 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 run. Get as many new customers as you can, and scale as quickly as you can. But um, yeah, and there's a lot of but today, especially in consumer products, there's so many great automation tools that you can use, so you can track it on a weekly basis and see where you're losing, if you're losing, how to lose, and then how to get them back. Because again, there's some great technology that we use to do it again for consumer products. So, you
What's
know,
your favorite one?
well, right now, most of the e-com companies that we're working with use products like Klaviyo or MailChimp, things like that, which have great automation tools built into them. Because MailChimp had acquired this company called Windsor Circle, and Windsor Circle was specifically focused on winning back customers and customer automation and automation tools. What we find in the B2C side, what we find is when we go into like a new client, they have their dropped shopping carts, they have their dropped search automation set up, they have their welcome series, and they have usually some other automation, but they leave off the most important one, which is a customer who bought X product but hasn't bought in X number of months, customer who bought this product but never bought anything else, customer who so there's so many different automations and segmentations you can do that you can really hyper target. We set up sometimes 20 different automations in a client to do different things, and it's amazing to them how the sales just start going. And it'll be customers who've never, who haven't purchased before. And you know what? I'll tell you another funny story. And this one just killed us. It killed us. We had this client. They sold a commodity product to consumers and never did anything with email at all. Never did anything with email at all, other than the transactional ones. You buy the product, you get your tracking number and all that. And we came in and said, look, we should we'll start out sending bi-weekly emails every 2 weeks. We don't want to overload the customer since they've never gotten them before. And we sent out the first 4 or 5. And I mean, the numbers that came back were unbelievable. So I said, you see, this is what I've been telling you. We had an update with the founder. I said, this is what I've been telling you. There's gold out there. And I said, look at this one customer just purchased, a couple of $1,000s worth of product. And he totally discounted our work. It's, they were existing customer. They would have come back anyway. I said, they're all existing customers. I said, they're all past customers. That's the point. And they probably wouldn't have come back if we didn't send out the email because they forgot about you because they haven't bought in a year. I said, so we sent out the email. You think, and this is sometimes how many of these founders think, well, they'll come back eventually. Well, they won't. You have to trigger them. You got to do something, either a phone call, an email, something to get them to remember you, because people forget. They're bombarded with so many different things. Sometimes they don't remember where I bought this from. And again, that's why we always tell people in e-commerce to make sure when you're packaging your product, make sure you're packaging it in a way that people are going to retain it, whether it's a box that's too pretty to throw away or something, because it's important that your brand stay in front of people.
Yeah, I guess that's why Apple does it.
Exactly. How many times I must have 50 Apple boxes.
I know, it's great.
Kids, everything that kids have bought, every phone, every pair of AirPods, everything. Nobody throws the boxes away. And then when the time comes and you get to a new one, you take the old one, you put it in the existing box, and you sell it or give it away.
Yeah. Why do you think that smart people don't optimize their business on stuff that's, I don't want to say so obvious, but pretty basic?
Well, I think in some cases it's a lack of understanding. Some cases, in a lot of times a founder is focused on the product he created, which is fine. I understand that. I've done it myself. And you get so focused on that you think that that's all you need to do. Right now, you have to market it, and this is where startups plateau. Your first, just like you said before, your first couple of years, you're out pounding it. You're getting new customers. You're doing whatever you can to find new customers to buy your product. But then you hit a wall. You'll hit your first wall when you go from 0 to say 5 million. Usually at 5 million, you hit that wall, and then the founder is pretty much in this mode of doing everything, right? But he doesn't have time to really understand every single thing he does. Right. Then he starts trying to bring people in. but those people may not have the experience that's necessary. You think people, when you say to somebody, are you, do you understand email? They think it's writing an email to, nice, pretty email to sell, right? They don't think about automation. They don't think about how am I going to win back customers who haven't bought, or somebody who is analyzing. They're not thinking about going back and analyzing customers who are past. They're so focused on the future. And then when you get into the point where, you go from 10 to 20 million, 20 to 50 million, then you start bringing in seasoned teams. But in a lot of cases, even those seasoned teams don't really understand um, how to use the tools necessary to keep scaling a business, right? So I think that some of it is just a lack of understanding or a lack of familiarity, and there's some people out there that just don't buy into it. They think their product is great and people should be flocking to it, and that's run some ads and get them back.
Yeah, it's cultural. This is how we built the business. We're not going to mess with something that works. So this is how we do things. And I would imagine that VCs want to see net new logos. So
Yeah,
you don't want to go for your next round of funding saying how much we won back or something. You want to say we've got this many net new logos. Uh, you know, where's our $50 million? And if that's what's rewarded, if a VC is rewarding that, and if you're rewarding your CRO, or on how many new accounts, then of course there's you're not aligned with the incentives. So that might be another thing.
yeah, yeah, absolutely. I think there's multiple of reasons for it, but yeah, you just brought up a good point about VCs and the growth, because you do get to that point. But um, every company that I've ever worked with or been involved with and studied gets to a point where what you said, this is how we've done it and it's gotten us this far and it should continue. And I always bring up the Larry Ellison story in Oracle, because before Oracle was huge like it is today, this is going back to the 90s. Oracle was on its back. It was almost dead. And they had gotten to, I think, 150 million. So they got from zero to 150 million, but they were stuck and stagnant at this 150 million, and they started to lose money. And Larry Ellison had to make some big decisions. And what he really discovered was that the management team that got him from zero to 150 million was not the management team that could get him from 150 million to 10 billion. And sometimes that's the problem, because in the early days, when you've got young employees working for you, everybody's focused on just trying to get to the next piece, the next piece, the next piece. And a lot of times, there are senior leaders or leaders that can get you from zero to 150 million, but really they're only good enough to get you from zero to 100. The last 50 was just momentum.
Right.
So, but yeah, it's we help on the second part of my life with outside of Crunch Growth is I do coaching, and I don't advertise it, but a lot of it has to do with the clients that we have, because we do work with a lot of companies that are still, the founder is still in charge. And, usually when they get to that $20 million, $30 million a year range, they wind up getting stagnant. And we have to sort of help them rethink about the business and get over that edge.
Yeah, if the founder doesn't have the right attitude, they can really just stop this cold in its tracks. There's that.
They could be an obstacle sometimes. Uh, one brand that I've been coaching, we had a 2-day offsite, and he had just hired an A plus player to head up sales. I mean, the guy was phenomenal, and then that guy was bringing in other salespeople, and the powerhouses. But the obstacle that he faced was the founder wanted to still be on every single phone call. And I was listening to this, and I said, You're running a $35 million a year business, and you're trying to get to $100 million, and you still want to be on every single phone call. Meanwhile, you're still interfacing with operations every day. You're still interfacing with customers. You're still doing all this. It's impossible. So this guy can't get his job done. You've brought in an A+ pet player, and he can't get his job done because he's got to try and manage around your schedule. To You got to take the handcuffs off. Let him go. You should be having a weekly meeting saying these are the top things. And that's sort of how we frame it. We talk about it in terms of growth, and we build it in a very specific way where you're focused on quarterly results, and you're focused on who's doing what on a quarterly basis. And they're, a wholesale operation. And so and it's very profitable. But I said, you're stuck here. You've been stuck here for 2 years. Yeah, you got 2% growth, 3% growth for the last 2 or 3 years, but you're not going to get to your 100 million if you continue to act the way you're acting. You can't be the founder of a $1 million startup trying to get to 100 million. You can't do it. So
Definitely.
yeah. There was one other. We've got about 5 minutes. But what's the approach that you take primarily for winning back?
Well, I'll give you the short version. So I call it the Winback Revenue Framework. It's worked very well. This is what we've been optimizing over the years. It's won back millions in lost revenue, and thousands and thousands of
Sure.
customers. So basically, what it is we identify your best prospects first, and so you want to know where to put your attention first and where you put the most money, time, and effort, right? So what we do is we do a propensity model, right, to identify the people who are most likely to come back, and then we do a predictive revenue model, and we score everybody on their probable revenue, like the revenue potential, and then we combine those two scores, so we get a group of people who are we get the group of people who are most likely to come back and generate the most revenue. So we take that group, and then what we do is we try to get a very deep understanding of why they left. So
Yeah.
we got a tool called the lost customer journey mapping, and we try to find out from the very first point of friction to where it accumulated enough that they started to question it, to where they actually what was the actual trigger for them to leave, to how they felt afterwards, to how they thought about what it would take to win them back. Anyway, we go very, very granular because you don't know what you don't know,
You
right?
don't know what you don't know is right.
So we go very deep, and then we do that. We do that as a qualitative survey, right? So we dig and dig and dig until we start hearing the same answers over and over again,
Sure.
and then we go qualitative. Then we go to everybody in that group, and we just give them survey. So we found the top three reasons for each part of the journey,
Right.
and then so we know what they are. We just don't know the relative importance of each of them. And then so what we do is we ask them, pick one, two, or three for each step, and so then we've got this really good map of these are the most important things. These are the things we have to hit first, and then so after we get that deep understanding of why they left. So first, right, we've identified the best prospects.
Sure.
Now have a deep understanding of why they left. And then we create the actual revenue engine. We create the messaging. We create the offer. We create the cadence. And it's pretty easy to create some very good messaging and A/B tests because you've got so much information to work off of, right?
Sure.
So then we do a test. And we find which ones worked, which ones didn't, and then we go and at the end of the test, we do a win-loss analysis. We talk to everybody who bought and asked why they bought, because whenever you do a win-loss analysis, people always buy for reasons you don't expect,
That's right.
and so you've got to understand why they bought, and then so then you rework your messaging, you rework your offer for that. And then you find out why people didn't buy. And then that's more information you can use to optimize the program. And of course, some of what they tell you isn't going to be true. So you've got to test all these things. But the point is, you get this feedback loop that makes your win-back program more and more effective. So that is the super fast version of what we do.
Oh, that's great. I mean, it sounds like a solid process. You use email mostly, or do you start with?
It starts with email, and we try to get as many people on the phone as possible for the qualitative,
Yeah, yeah,
and then the quantitative is all email.
yeah, yeah. I would imagine that's pretty effective. Well, so how do people get in touch with you? How do they find you? Uh,
So Dan at Winback, Dan at winbacklabs.com. That's the easiest way to get a hold of me. Um, at the website, winbacklabs.com, there's a lot of stuff there. And if you take a look at me on Winback, I'm not Winback, on LinkedIn, I've posted a ton. I haven't been posting much lately, but there's a ton out there
and
on
your
Winback.
and where's your book? Is it your book on Amazon?
My book is, yes, on Amazon. There it is there, Million Dollar Winback.
There you go. So you pick that up if you want to. But that was a masterclass in turning forgotten customers into found revenue. Dan just showed us that growth doesn't always mean more spend or more noise. Sometimes it's about a smarter strategy and better timing. So, if you've got past customers sitting in your CRM, you might be sitting on a six-figure opportunity. And the best part, you've already paid for it. So check out Dan's book, Million Dollar Winback, and his podcast, the Winback Marketing Podcast. You still do that, right, Dan?
Yep, I'm starting again season 3 in about 2 months.
Yeah. So for even more insights, where is it? Is it on Spotify, Apple?
So Spotify and Apple, yeah.
Yeah. So the Winback Marketing Podcast for even more insights. And if you're serious about scaling smarter, visit us at crunchgrowth.com. Thanks for watching and keep growing. And we will see you next week.